Hi everyone, today we're going to do a fun St. Patrick's Day card. I'm going to use a lot of different tools and techniques for this one. We're going to use the Cricut foil tool and the Cricut foil. I'm also going to use the brand new Cricut gel pens that are universal for all the machines. I've got a piece of heavyweight cardstock out of my stash. And then I've also got some print that cut that goes into this card. And I already printed the page just to save a little bit of time. So we are basically ready to just add our printed page and start cutting. I am also doing this on the brand new Cricut Explore 5 in the teal color that I picked up from Michael's yesterday. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is get our printed page on our mat. Now I like to put my printed page so that it is just a tiny bit away from the grid marks on the edge and the top, just a tiny bit, just so I can see the line. Okay, now it's telling me to load my mat. I like to tip the back of my mat up and push it under the two little guides and make sure I'm against the rollers before I hit the play button. I'm really loving that we now have one less button, and when we hit play, it just goes and it starts cutting right after. Look how fast that scanned it. I did do a calibration for print and cut before I started this project. You might get away with skipping that, but you might also end up with cuts that aren't quite as crisp and perfectly aligned as they should be. So always do your print and cut calibration when you get a new machine. So while that's cutting, so what I really like about these new universal pens, aside from the fact that each pen has a little nib on the lid so they don't roll away on your desk, they also each come with an adapter. Now, what that adapter is for your older machines, like the Explore 4 and older, or the Maker Series machines, or the Venture. This pen will fit into this adapter and snap in, and then you just put this adapter in place of your old adapter in the older machines, and then you can use these pens on all the machines. That is a huge plus over having to change out different styles of pens. And then you've got pens for a Maker, you've got pens for your Explorers, you've got pens for your Joy. These will automatically fit the Cricut Explore 5 series without any kind of an adapter. And they fit all of the Joy machines without an adapter. Okay, now to get my print off, I'm going to turn my mat upside down. And then I'm just going to kind of roll my mat off of my material. This will help ensure that I don't curl up my project. Look at how perfect those cut. Okay, so let's set those aside. Okay, now it's ready to do the pen part. This is where this particular project is a little bit tricky. So we're going to actually draw on this paper that's already cut out. Now, the way I have it set up in Design Space on my cut screen, when I got to the preview, I moved this piece down for the pen mat to where it was right at 1 inch down and 1 inch to the right. Just like that. And that way, it will still draw where I need it to draw. Now, do keep in mind that it's going to try to cut that piece again, and we don't need it to do that. So I'm just going to pull my blade out of my holder. That way I don't forget and have it accidentally cut my card. And then if I don't have it lined up, my card's not where it belongs. Okay, now it's telling me to load my yellow pen first. And we're going to grab a little piece of scratch paper and give it a scribble just to make sure it writes. When you put these pens in the new machine, in the new Explore machine, they click in. You have to put them in with some force. Did you hear that? They will audibly click. If it didn't click, you don't have it all the way in. I'm gonna lift up my mat again and push the load button. Now this design does go a tiny bit off of the edge of the card, so it is going to draw on my mat a little bit. Okay. Now it wants the green pen, and again, I'll make sure it writes. Notice we heard the click. And now on my project, it says Adobe. There wasn't a choice for orange, so I just picked Adobe. Okay, and now it wants the red pen. And now it's saying magenta, but it's purple. And the last one should be blue. Okay, and now it's telling me to load the fine point blade, which I'm not technically doing, but I am going to pull my pin out. And I'm just going to let it think it has its blade in so that it doesn't actually cut my piece again. Okay, and now it's ready to unload. Now that I'm done with that, I'm going to put my blade back in my blade holder. And then we are going to peel this card off the mat again. Isn't that cute? Trust me, folks, it's about to look better, I promise. Okay. Okay, so now it's time to put the cardstock on and do the foil. So I'll get this lined up at the top. Now it's going to want to score first. Looks like my paper has a mark on it. Let's flip that over. There we go. It's telling me to load the scoring tool, which is this one. And I have chosen heavy watercolor paper as my paper choice. Hold the mat up. Hit the play button. Let's move our parts out of the way here. Okay, now it wants us to install our foil. Okay, now judging by my screen, I need this between about the 6 and 9 marks. See, my card is going to be 10 inches wide. And I need to go down about an inch from the top. Now the secret to good foiling on the Cricut machine is to get your foil as tight as you can. Which I will admit is a whole lot easier when it's not on the mat in the machine. Okay, and I have the medium tip in my foil tool. Now we will hit go. I'm just going to stick that box under there so it keeps my mat just a little bit more flat. That heavy cardstock kind of has a tendency to want to come up off of your mat. Foiling is not a fast process, and especially not when you have as many words on the card as I put on this one. It's a little over a third of the way done. I guess while we're waiting for that, I can go ahead and glue these two pieces together. And I'm just using Nuvo Deluxe glue. Just happens to be what's on my table. Just drop it anywhere. Okay, there's that. And then I need to grab one of my action wobbles. Now let's see, is this gonna be... That looks like it'll fit perfect. Now this is a regular large size action wobble. I just find these on Amazon. Michael's also has some in their own store brand. And then there's also these much smaller ones that come in handy when you're doing a small piece. Almost done. Let's see, I want to move these out of the way so that I don't accidentally spill anything on them. Looks like I just barely got it in the right spot. Okay, so now it's telling us to remove our foil and then we're going to put the blade in. I know from experience that this cardstock tears pretty easy, so I'm going to try to go really slow. There's one piece. If you have cardstock that tears pretty easy when using the tape that came from Cricut, you can try using some washing tape that maybe isn't quite as sticky. Okay, and now we put the fine point blade back in and hit the play button. Make sure that cut through. And we're going to eject. I will flip my mat upside down. And then in my cover and put that back on. Okay, let me find my bone folder and we will get to assembly. Now, as you can see, I've got one little tiny tear right here that I'll deal with later. But my foiling turned out really nice. Now, you can't really see the score line really well, but I find if I just kind of start folding it in that general area, it will grab and fold really easy. Okay, let's make sure I got my right side. Okay, now we're going to need this piece. And we need our pot of gold. Okay, so with these, one side is a very stiff plastic, and then your other side is kind of flexible. I have found that it is much easier if you pull off this hard plastic side first, and then I stick that side to whatever item I'm putting on the card. And then now you're left with the flexible side, so you can kind of bend that side around if you need to get the backing off. It just makes the backing a little bit easier to remove when you're not trying to pull it off of a stiff piece of plastic when it's already attached to something. Okay. And then where we want this, actually, you know what? I want to tape this to the front of my card first. Now, because this is photo paper, it doesn't always play nice with glue, so I'm going to go ahead and use a tape runner and glue. Well, maybe. Guess that tape runner's empty. Now I will grab my glue. And then we just want to center this the best I can, which is probably not going to be good, but, you know, I'll roll with it. Okay, now I will take my pot of gold. I want this to be right at the bottom. Okay, and then I'll use my bone folder underneath just to kind of push the other piece of that plastic down and make sure it's stuck good. And then there you have it. Isn't that cute? Hope you enjoyed this and hope you give a shot to the new Cricut pins. I think you'll be really happy with them. And happy crafting.